later. All right, here we go. We are live on Facebook. And
Exciting.
we are, yay, meeting is streaming live on Facebook. We get to say that at the beginning of every interview. So welcome back, everyone. We are here for another inspirational interview on Wednesday. And my guest today is Dagmar Spremberg. Did I say your last name correctly?
Yes. Absolutely. Okay. Well done.
Great. And so we're going to be talking about yoga and relationships, or the relationships of yoga, or the yoga of relationships. All of those pieces together. So let me just introduce Dagmar is a 500-hour ERYT registered yoga teacher and the founder of Montezuma Yoga in Costa Rica. While growing up in Germany, all she could envision for herself was a life in the sunshine and under the palm trees. She manifested her dream and yoga found her there. So I met Dagmar when David and I went to Costa Rica at the end of February, and she was our yoga teacher, and it was just wonderful. So welcome, Dagmar, and great to be connected with you here.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, and that's so beautiful to see you. We had no idea in February what will happen months later, and here we are. Crazy.
I know. It's an ongoing evolution, isn't it?
It is.
So talk to us a little bit about your story and your evolution of finding yoga.
Okay. Well, I grew up in Germany, and as I was living in Germany, somehow I always had this vision of like wanting to live in the under palm trees and in the sunshine. So I never really felt Germany was my country, which was weird because my whole family was very German. I didn't have like an aunt in Costa Rica or in America or anywhere. So I always had this picturing myself, but it always felt like, you know, this cliche or this dream that is not really for me. And then in 1991, I came the first time to Costa Rica, and I went to Montezuma just because I fell in love with the name. And the place touched me deeply. And it was really like, you know, when you have a dream and you finally see somebody else living it, it's like, wow, this person is living my dream. We stayed in this really tiny place. You've been there, Amor de Mar Hotel. And the owner was German, and the kids were running around, and it was all jungle. And it was like, this is like my dream. But I felt like, well, how am I ever going to do it? So I went back to Germany. But I think there was really a seed planted, and it took me another 9 years and a couple of detours. I basically left Germany and my whole life in Germany behind and moved to Los Angeles in 1996, so 5 years later. Because, you know, I turned 30 and there was just this like moment of like now or never. And that was probably the scariest decision of my life because I left my job, I left my husband, I left all my friends, I moved to LA without even knowing anyone. But looking back, it was really the best decision of my life, even though it was the scariest, because I kind of like created my life in a way that I really all of a sudden met people where I felt like, okay, now this is really my tribe. This is where I feel I belong. I never had this feeling in Germany that I really belonged. It was always like me and the others. And then when I arrived in LA, I found yoga, which was the biggest gift probably in my life as well. And there were all these like-minded people that were like searching also for like a different way of living life. And, you know, and there were all these different cultures, and it was like, well, how do people live in Australia and how do they live in Japan? And we were all coming together, kind of wanting to live a dream. So I stayed like 3.5 years in Los Angeles. And then I moved to New York, and I spent a good 1.5 years in New York until I finally went again to visit Montezuma for a vacation and fell in love again 9 years later, and happened to fall in love with the Greek man who owns a hotel, and the rest is history. So then things really started to fall into place. And when I arrived in Montezuma in 2000 from New York, I was doing a lot of yoga, but I wasn't a yoga teacher yet. And since my boyfriend had a hotel and had this space where you practice, there used to be a restaurant. My idea was like, okay, well, maybe I should bring yoga here. and not really thinking I becoming the teacher, but more thinking like, okay, I'm going to bring yoga teachers here because this is what I'm going to miss the most. And my teacher was Elena Brauer back then in New York. And so I invited her to come for a retreat. And she came in 2001, right after September 11. And meanwhile, because of September 11, I was clear that it was time to leave New York. And so I made the jump to go to Costa Rica to see what's going to happen. And that was like the long story short. So basically,
Yes.
when she arrived, then she said, well, what are you going to do here? And I was like, well, I don't know. I guess I'll bring yoga here because this is what I would be missing the most. And it's not here yet. And then she said, you should be a yoga teacher. And I know you're going to do a great job and I'll mentor you. And then I was like, really, like me? And she was like, yeah, you. So then I started, like, I had the space, I had nothing better to do anyway. Yoga was my passion, was my love. So I started like twice a week. And then I did a yoga teacher training. And then the rest is history. Here I am 19 years later.
Yeah. And you've built quite a business and a following there. So there's many relationships in that story that were catalysts for transformation or transitions that you made. So talk to me a little bit about when you realized the connection between the practice of yoga and the relationships that we have in our lives.
Well, first of all, I realized it when I made the decision to leave Germany. And that was even before I did yoga. But I was clearly having this moment of like now or never. And I was like, I clearly cannot continue to blame life for my own unhappiness. I have to take action. I have to follow my heart. And I'm going to be okay, because as long as I can look into the mirror and be okay with my decision, I'm gonna see what happens. And so you have to sometimes go beyond the comfort zone and just show up for yourself and step up. So this is what led me to LA. And luckily LA was far enough so that I couldn't jump on the next plane and go back, because of course, first I thought like this was the biggest mistake ever. Then I went to yoga, and I was lucky that one of the first teachers I met was a really beautiful woman. Beautiful because her yoga was really a beautiful physical practice, but so inspirational. And she was really so much about, sharing philosophy, but really the philosophy, how you bring yoga into life. And really like, it was so much about beauty and like how to see beauty. And it was really amazing. And to me, it really felt like, oh, wow. So this is really like a different way of looking at life, and really creating and finding beauty. And I realized, well, that's really yoga, because I was never one of those super bendy yoga practitioners, and I didn't really care, but it always touched my heart. And I was like, okay, this is what I've been longing for. I've been longing for like a philosophy or a connection with other people that touches my soul and touches my heart. And that's then how I started, to like really go deeper into yoga. And when I look back, I think the biggest gift that yoga has given to me is really the relationships the community I've created myself, the community I found, the support that I found when my life was upside down, and and also the philosophy and the practice for myself. But I think it really goes together, when you shift yourself, then everything else shifts around you. And when you shift your relationships, you also start attracting other people into your life. And that's something I really very clearly noticed with yoga,
Has there been a time where you took a particular teaching in yoga, whether it was like the yamas or niyamas, or something from the Yoga Sutras, or something from a certain pose, that you were like, I'm really going to focus on this as a transformation in my relationship with other people?
The main thing to me is really that there's always opposing energies. I never went so particular into like the yoga philosophy in that sense, but what I realized is like there's always stability and freedom. And there's moments in life when we need more stability, and we can use the yoga and we can use our connections to find stability and to create it. And there's, if we have too much stability, we feel stuck, and then we long for freedom. But if we're like having too much freedom, then we get lost, we get spaced out, and then again, like we are not clear, we don't have clear relationships because we're just all spaced out. So then we need the yoga again to help us to come together. And this was something really beautiful. I come from Anusara yoga, and that was very heart focused back then. And so every class had like a heart theme, and it was always energetic, you know. So to me, it's really, once I understood, it's like, okay, I root down to rise up. I like draw in to then expand. And this pulsation of like, you know, energy, that was like, okay, there are moments in life I need to draw in. There's moments in life I need to work on expanding. That has really been like, I think the biggest lesson that I still apply after so many years of like, okay, where am I now? Like, you know, do I need to go to like my belly for strength? Do I need to go to my heart for expansion? What do I need right now? And how can I use the practice to create that, you know? Because we never need the same. Well, like life, you know, gives us so many different challenges, and then yoga gives us so many beautiful tools, you know.
Yes,
and
it does.
fascinating.
I actually I just wrote a blog post about that for the 4th of July here in the States. It's called the Freedom Paradox, of looking at like, we can't just have total freedom, right? And we can't have total structure. Like, we need the combination of the two. So I love how you just described that so beautifully. Well, before I ask you any more questions, if any of you viewers have any questions that you want to ask Dagmar, please type them in the chat and I'll be happy to relay those to her. So feel free to ask away or comment on what we're saying in the chat. You all can be engaged in this conversation too. So Dagmar, I would love, so you talked about like, talking about trust and integrity building. Can you share a little bit more along those lines?
Yes, of course. So when we think of like stability and freedom, it's like, okay, first we have to draw in. And that's really, I think, also the gift of yoga. Yoga is self-inquiry, and everything starts with ourselves. And that can be bad news and good news, because when we show up for ourselves and take that responsibility, it's like, okay, we can't really blame the world anymore. You know, there's this beautiful saying, it's like, you cannot change the world, you cannot change other people, and the only thing you really can change is yourself. But then like the way you show up with yourself to the world is also how you tell them to treat you. So if you are honoring your own needs, and this is like often, I mean, for me, it was a big lesson, because that's nothing I really grew up learning, how to honor my needs. So once you start to be like, okay, I need to build this with myself, I need to first honor my own needs for myself, because if I don't honor my own needs, how is anybody else going to do it? You know, because it's like, you know, other people can just walk right over me. So then the yoga practice really became this like practice of like, okay, how beautiful. So here we are doing a practice where it's all the time like self-inquiry, like, how do I feel right now? What's going on for me? Oh, today I'm feeling sad. Today I'm feeling angry. Today I'm feeling happy. All of it is okay. All of it is allowed. How beautiful. Most of the time you're only supposed to be happy, right? So you start to like accept your own feelings and the own fluctuations in your body and your mind, in your emotions. And then you come to a place of like, okay, it's fine to be vulnerable. It's fine. I cannot always be strong, because again, you know, life is like yin and yang. You need the two sides, because, you know, so then you use the practice for that. And yeah, and now I'm lost my train of thought. Where was I?
Integrity, building trust, and integrity. Yeah.
So once you get to the point, thank you. I'm so Vata.
Vata moment.
So then you get, Vata moment. So then you get to the point of like, okay, I start to build integrity with myself. I'm not pushing my own thoughts or emotions down, and I learn what I can do to like work with them. I know what to do when I feel sad. Maybe I just need to go on my yoga mat, or maybe I need to take a walk and go out into nature, whatever it is. I don't need to wait for another person to pick me up to make me happy. So you make little promises to yourself. When you make little promises to yourself that you can keep, it builds integrity, it builds trust. It's like, oh, I can take care of myself. That was not so bad. I didn't fall into the spiral, into the hole. Or even to pick up the phone, if you can't get yourself out of the spiral, you call a friend, but you can admit and you take action. And that feels good. It's like, I'm taking my life into my own hand. I call a friend and I'm like, I'm feeling really weird today, and can I share this with you? So all these things are like very good to build trust and integrity with yourself. And then you have a good experience of like sharing that. Somebody responds, somebody sees you, you feel seen, you feel appreciated. It's also so much easier than to share it with other people. Whereas if you're not really feeling clear with yourself, or if you're beating yourself up for the way you feel, you're gonna communicate it also completely different in your relationships to your friends, your family, because you're coming from a place of like, I don't really feel good about myself, I'm not sure, so in that sense, I think, everything really starts with yourself. And the more trust you build with yourself, the more courage you also have to go out there and just be you. And, that's something in my programs that I really feel most passionate about, to really make people, or empower people to really trust. The more you show up as you, the more people can see you also. And, and it starts with you showing up.
That sounds, it's taking what we experience off the mat into relating to other people, right? What are your observations of the transformation that happens when people start doing yoga, and perhaps they're in relationship with people who don't do yoga? Any thoughts about that kind of?
Well, again, what I experience myself and what I see in my students is really like, a lot of people come to yoga and they're like, I'm not flexible. I want to be able to touch my toes, or my hamstrings are tight, And while I believe it's beautiful to come into yoga from like a physical goal of like wanting to open your body, everybody at some point realize there's more to it than just like, oh, I want to touch my toes. Because like I said, you want to touch your toes, and then it touches your heart and it touches your soul. And you're like, ooh, actually, the way I feel in Shavasana is something I haven't felt in a while, which is like, oh, I haven't felt like so connected to myself. Or it's almost like I feel like coming home when I'm doing yoga. And the posture that changes physically, it's, I walk through life different when I'm like after a yoga class, when I'm feeling really good about myself. So all these things are having a huge impact into your life, and all the paths, all the ways, lead to the same experience. So it's fine if you come from, I just want to touch my toes, because sooner or later it's going to be more than that,
Yeah, I like the saying. I lived at Satchitananda Ashram for a summer, and they have a big gate there that says truth is one, paths are many. And so it's like, we can have many paths that get us to yoga, but that ultimate truth is the same for everybody. It's that unification, right? The yoking, uniting.
And I didn't answer the second part with when you have somebody in your life who doesn't do yoga. I think, and that's again also from my own experience, it's like, I had boyfriends when I started and was so excited. I was like, oh, I want you to do it too. And they were like, it's fine if it works for you, leave me in peace, So it never works to tell somebody, this is great for you, you should try it, or try to convince them. But when they see in you what it does to you, that's what's gonna inspire them to come and give it a try. And I think, it's something, once they experience that bliss in Shavasana, that's what's gonna get them back. So be patient. If there's any person that you want to do the yoga with you, just live it in front of them and just inspire them by seeing what it does to you, to maybe give it a try. And, and people, including myself, there's times I practice more, there's times my practice is less on the mat. And so I see with my boyfriend, for years he was doing yoga a lot with me, and now he's like just back into biking. And sometimes I'm like, oh, I wish we would do yoga again like we used to, it's like, it's not going to happen if he doesn't have the desire,
Right.
And now sometimes he comes and he does it again, or he joins me if he sees me on the mat, and it's like, okay, if he sees I'm doing it and there's space, he might join me,
Yeah.
So
So again, like the ebb and flow, right? Like it's not a definite thing. Like this is a requirement if I'm doing it. I see that very much with Ayurveda too. Like once the, one partner starts doing practices of Ayurveda and the other partner sees how great they feel or look or their energy is or whatever, then they're kind of like, I want whatever they're having.
Exactly. And can I just have a pill that gives it to me?
Yep, the Ayurveda and yoga pill. It's coming out soon, along with the COVID vaccination. We'll see. How about staying grounded in uncertain times? Talk to us about that.
Yes, so I think, that we're all going through the lockdown right now. Being like you and I were talking before, it's like we're so into connection and like feeling people and community. It's been really challenging for me as well to just be home. And even though I'm teaching online and it's nice to have that, it's like, I just want to like see people. And it sometimes really takes me out, and I feel very like, it's very uncertain. When am I even going to start my studio again? When am I going to be able to travel again and teach my retreats? I've definitely been in a lot of like ups and downs right now. So then it's like, okay, I need to come back to my core. So I do really a lot of practices, really going inward. And I think maybe this is really the gift of the time. If I just sit here and all the time think like, oh, but I want to be traveling right now, I want to be teaching retreats right now, I want to see my friends, I'm just always out. It's like, it's not going to make me happy. So then I think when I come to a place of like, okay, like they always talk about the hurricane and the eye of the hurricane. So even if there's a lot of crazy stuff going on around you, if you go to the center, and the yogis say like, this is the place that never changes, really, really inside, then I always feel like good. And it always kind of like when I do like meditation or really grounding practice, it's like, okay, it's okay. I can do this. It could be way worse. I have a beautiful life. I come to a place of gratitude. I come to a place of like, until then, after like a couple of days, a couple of weeks, I am again like, what I want to be like, but so again, it's the balance. But to do practices that ground you, I think is really, really good right now. I don't think we need more like freedom and expansion, even though maybe we would think because we've so been confined in our spaces that all we really long for is freedom. But I think with all the uncertainty right now is a really good time to go in and do practices, pranayama, meditation, really gentle yoga, yin yoga, all these things to really like go in and feel, okay, I'm still on this earth. The floor is underneath me. I'm good. Yeah. And then from there, you can like show up again, in your relationships.
Right. Yeah. Is there any particular practice that you found really meaningful in relationship in terms of?
Yes, I do a very, and I'm happy to do it if we have the time together, but basically I can also just explain it. I do, I think we have the two energy centers. There's the belly, the core, which is for grounding and connection. The belly stands for integrity, for like, where do I stand, like connecting with yourself. And then there's the heart. So I do a lot of practices of like checking in with both places. For example, if I'm like having trouble to fall asleep at night, I lie on my bed, I take my feet together, knees out to the side like butterfly, place my right hand onto the belly, my left hand to my heart, and I breathe into both places and I check in, just simple, like, okay, where do I need to go more? Like, do I need more grounding in my belly? Is my heart feeling really tight? Do I need to breathe a little bit into my heart? This is a very grounding practice to me and very simple. And then you can take that into a longer meditation where also like you first sit and meditate into the belly and you just see how that feels. And I focus on the pulsation of the navel. Very simple. You know, I think we need to keep it really, really simple, nothing crazy. And I just sit with the eyes closed and I just breathe and feel like my navel is pulsating. It's like, okay, so this is my core. And then I draw a line. After a while, I draw a visual line from my belly, from my navel up into my heart. And then I feel how energy moves up and down. And then I focus on my heart and I see, okay, what's going on for me right now here? How do I feel? And the heart is like the place to go for trust, for love, for compassion. And then again, I'm like, I feel how they are connected and how they support each other, because I believe if we are connected in the core, it's easier to trust.
Yeah.
And that is a very grounding practice to me. I do it 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and just really like see, okay, today, where do I need to go more? Do I need to nourish my heart more? A really beautiful thing is also to like, I rub my thumb over my heart. And this is so like, you feel your heartbeat and it's like, this is very calming, very soothing. Or again, it's my belly, because also when I feel off, I feel it often in my digestion. So also like, from Ayurvedic point, the Agni, the little fire, it's also beautiful to visualize a little fire or to just visualize the navel. And it's like, okay, every breath kind of nourishes the warmth inside of my belly. Yeah. And then, so for me, it's always very energetic. It's like, okay, more belly right now or more heart right now. And then, this is a good one. The Agni, the little flame in the belly is a good one.
Yeah.
And stay there and just like bring it back to you and like just breathe and be still and self-care. It's like, okay, I feel my heart is beating, my belly is breathing,
Yeah.
the little fire is burning, it's like, I got this, you're doing good. It's like, okay.
I just found myself breathing more in my belly as you were talking about that. Just like, oh yeah, relaxing there and letting that breath flow. And it is so nice to have that invitation. I think that's such a great part of attending yoga classes and why there's a real need for them, even online right now, to be able to like have somebody else say, relax your belly, let it expand.
I know.
Feel that connection there, right? It's so important.
And that's what I love. It's so simple, and yet we forget. And so we need to be reminded. And it's like, okay, just a little moment. We think, oh, if I'm not, I mean, for me, the biggest obstacle was always, I thought like, if I don't go 90 minutes onto my yoga mat, it doesn't count. So then I wasn't doing it at all because I never had 90 minutes, and it's like, wow, just 5 minutes like this, wow, makes a difference in my day. And then maybe I have 15 minutes today, or maybe I do half an hour, or and just be gentle with yourself. That's the most grounding. It's like, little moments of like quiet, connect, breathe, feel, and accept, everything starts with you.
Yeah. Well, it's been such a pleasure having you on today. Where can people find you on the internet and find out more about you?
I have two websites, and one is everything Costa Rica, which is called Montezuma Yoga. I'm happy to post it in the comments, montezumayoga.com. Montezuma is the name of the town. And right now we're closed, but hopefully we're gonna start in November again. And we offer beautiful yoga vacation packages and retreats and
you're lovely
classes. Yeah. Exactly. And then I have my personal website, which is dagmarspremberg.com. And this is more where I post, stuff that I personally do, like my YouTube videos, yin yoga practices, my Zoom classes, my retreats, and things like that. And my personal website is also more really about, trust, courage, and I do a mentorship program every January that is like for a small group of women. It's a 5-week program about building trust and courage. It's called Cultivating Intuition. So that's always been very much my focus, like coming back to you. So yeah, you can find that on my personal page. Thank you for offering to share.
Yeah. Well, there's so many amazing gifts you have to offer. So yeah, I highly recommend Montezuma as a wonderful little beach town, but the yoga is fabulous. And yeah, we got to stay in a little bungalow and eat amazing food and go to yoga, and it was pretty dreamy. Right before the shutdown, we got back, and like a few days later, it's like, you're not going anywhere. So now we are like, remember Costa Rica?
I know.
So lovely. But it's wonderful to have made the connection with you there and then to continue online now. And thank you so much for your generosity of time today and sharing with everybody in this group. And all the best to you as you journey on here.
Well, thank you. I really love listening to all the interviews, and I'm honored that you invited me to be here today. And I think what you're building and this group is really fabulous. And I love all the Ayurveda you shared also for my people. So it's been a really sweet connection. Thank you for that.
Yeah, we're cross-pollinating. That's good.
Absolutely. I'm sure we're going to continue doing that.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you. All right. Thank you, everyone, for watching. Namaste. Take care.
Bye.